The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Written by John Mark Comer. Summarized by goldreaders.com. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Introduction. We're all short on time. Even someone like Bill Gates, with all his wealth and intelligence, can't magically create more hours in a day. So why do we use up so much of our time on smartphones or rushing around without even considering our actions? Pastor John Mark Comer experienced what he calls the hurry disease. On the surface, his life seemed successful and thrilling because he managed a fast-growing church. However, internally, he felt drained and worried. He realized that if he kept going down that path, he would become more successful yet increasingly unhappy. He needed to change his way of life at its core. But how could he do that? He understood that the solutions he was searching for had always been present in the Bible. By genuinely living out Jesus' teachings and not just talking about them, Comer discovered how to slow down, appreciate the world around him, and lead a much more satisfying life. In the following points, we'll explore 4 straightforward yet transformative practices that help Comer and could assist you too. In this summary, you'll discover why we've grown so attached to being busy and fast-paced, how embracing our limitations can open up more opportunities for us, why having more time won't necessarily make us less busy. Chapter 1. The Anxieties of Success. Our lives are made up of a sequence of moments. But what if you're so caught up in busyness and stress that you can't truly enjoy the present moment you're in? Comer had achieved a lot on the surface. He led a rapidly growing church in Portland, Oregon, attracting 1,000 new members every year, which showcased his abilities as a pastor. He was married with children and had authored multiple books. However, beneath these achievements, he felt a continuous undercurrent of anxiety. He worked tirelessly, 6 days a week, and managed up to 6 classes daily. His interactions with his staff were strained as he often snapped at them, his stress affecting those around him. In the evenings, he'd slump on the couch, mindlessly watching movies. He felt empty and drained, like a spectator in his own life. During a plane journey back from London, he had an eye-opening moment. He questioned himself, "Who am I becoming?" He realized that despite growing a successful church, he had drifted away from his spiritual purpose. He had transformed into something akin to a CEO, stuck in meetings all day. Yet, his true passion lay in connecting with his congregation. Summoning his courage, he informed the church leadership of his decision to resign. Instead of overseeing the operations of the large church, he wanted to heed his heart's call and become the pastor of a smaller church in Portland's inner city. They accepted his resignation, granting him his freedom. In the initial 6 months, he experienced a significant crash due to his accumulated exhaustion. It was as though he needed to detox from the fast-paced lifestyle, treating stress like a drug. Gradually, he managed to recover emotionally and spiritually. He had time to spend with his children, walk the dog, and attend therapy. To an outsider, his success seemed diminished. From leading a massive church with numerous branches and thousands of members to pastoring a small, less-known church in Portland's inner city. Nonetheless, he understood that true success, for him, meant achieving emotional and spiritual well-being, and he was confident he was on the right path. Chapter 2. The Hidden Costs of Being Constantly Busy. When someone asks how you're doing, how often do you respond that you're really busy or stressed? It's become so usual to constantly rush from one thing to another that we might not even notice we're doing it or think that life could be different. Being overly busy doesn't depend on how much money you have or where you live. Whether you're a rich CEO in India or a struggling single mom in Indiana, you're likely to be very busy. But is being busy a bad thing? Well, it actually has a negative impact on your physical and emotional health. If you're a religious person, it can even affect your connection with your faith. Carl Jung once said that, "Hurry is not of the devil, hurry is the devil." It might seem extreme to say that being in a rush is evil, but if you look at the consequences, it makes sense. Instead of having peaceful moments for prayer and growing our faith, we end up spending time scrolling through social media or anxiously replying to emails. Instead of using Sundays for worship or spending relaxed time with our loved ones, we're constantly moving from one task to another. The most important religious value is love. However, showing love takes time. Think about how you act when you're running late and trying to rush your family out the door. You're probably impatient and grumpy, which isn't a loving state at all. On the other hand, taking things slowly is often seen in a negative light. We use it as an insult, suggesting that people are not smart or that a restaurant service is bad. However, slowing down can be exactly what we need to strengthen our faith and live fulfilling lives. After all, there's a reason we're told to walk with Jesus, not sprint. Slowing down gives us the time to enjoy our relationships, think about our choices, and connect with our spiritual mentors. So, the next time you're having a great time with your family and your phone beeps with an urgent email, realize that this interruption isn't just taking you away from your meal, but also from your spiritual side. And it can wait until later. Chapter 3. Time Savers and Time Sinks. Imagine a time before clocks existed. The only way to determine the time was by observing the position of the sun in the sky. This changed when mechanical clocks were invented by monks, who needed a dependable way to signal prayer times. By 1370, the first public clock tower was constructed in Cologne, Germany. This allowed anyone in the public to easily know the exact time while walking through the church square. Instead of relying on the natural movements of the sun and moon, people now adhered to the guidance of these newly created mechanical timekeepers. Another significant shift in our relationship with time came with Thomas Edison's invention of the light bulb in 1879. This innovation replaced the need for dim candlelight and enabled well-lit homes even after sunset. This had a direct impact on people's sleep patterns. Prior to the light bulb, the average American slept for 11 hours each night, but now they only sleep for 7. It's no wonder many people feel consistently tired. Numerous technologies have been developed to save us time. For instance, instead of traveling on horseback, we can cover great distances by car in a short time. Instead of manually starting a fire, we can heat our homes with the touch of a button on our smartphones. These inventions have indeed been time-saving. Consider the smartphone. It's undoubtedly helpful. We can respond to emails during bus rides, instantly share baby photos with family worldwide, and navigate through cities using maps on our phones. However, smartphones can also consume a significant amount of our time. A recent study featured in Business Insider revealed that the average iPhone user interacts with their phone around 2,617 times daily. So what's the solution? Unless we completely detach from modern society and live in a remote, technology-free community, we can't return to a life without artificial light, clocks, or smartphones. We don't need to reject all technology, but it's wise to approach technological promises with skepticism. Speed doesn't always translate to convenience, and occasionally getting lost might not be a negative thing. In fact, wandering aimlessly can provide valuable time for contemplation. Chapter 4. Beyond the myth of more time. Did you ever consider that having more time could solve all your problems? Imagine if we had an additional 10 hours every day. You're probably excitedly thinking about all the things you could accomplish with that extra time. However, there's a catch. Having more time might not actually make us less busy. It might just give us more time to stay busy. This is because we live in a society that's afraid of missing out, or FOMO. As a result, we attempt to do everything, watch every movie, listen to every podcast, travel to every country. But the truth is, we're not superheroes with endless resources. We're human beings with natural limits that determine what we can realistically achieve in our lives. So, the solution to our busy lives isn't necessarily more time. Instead, it's about dedicating the time we have to focus on what truly matters to us and what we're capable of doing well. Think about it this way. Each of us has our own unique personality. Some individuals handle stress well, while others struggle with too many deadlines. Some thrive in social settings, while others prefer solitude. We all have distinct abilities that can either enable or restrict us. For instance, practicing the violin diligently can take you far, but if you lack a good sense of pitch, becoming a professional musician might not be feasible. Moreover, our socioeconomic circumstances also play a role in how we use our limited time. Some are fortunate to be born into affluent families, which means they can afford to invest time in a quality education. On the other hand, those from less privileged backgrounds might not have the luxury of dedicating time to education and might have had to leave school to support their families. While it might seem pessimistic to acknowledge these constraints in our lives, it's actually quite empowering. Recognizing what limits us can relieve the pressure of trying to do everything and be everywhere. It encourages us to make deliberate choices about what we genuinely want to achieve within the bounds of our limitations. Since time isn't limitless, it's important to maximize its potential. Chapter 5. Jesus' approach to time and priorities. If you've ever attended a church service, you probably know the 10 Commandments by heart. But do you also recall the everyday actions of Jesus? The Bible isn't just a book of moral lessons. It's also a biography, although we might not often view it that way. It provides a detailed description of Jesus' day-to-day life, what he did, said, and how he practiced his faith. While we tend to perceive spiritual practices as lofty and intangible, they're actually quite practical. Even before mindfulness became popular, Jesus demonstrated how to be present and fully engaged in life. Biblical stories show that Jesus was never rushed. Despite having a lot on his plate, he always took his time. For instance, there's a story where a man named Jairus pleads for Jesus to heal his critically ill daughter. While on the way, Jesus pauses to help a woman who is suffering. He's completely attentive and calm, addressing her needs before continuing to help Jairus' daughter. Jesus leads a busy life, yet he remains relaxed and unburdened by hurry or stress. Jesus also made sure to take breaks for himself, finding moments to recharge between activities. However, he wasn't a recluse. Whenever possible, he enjoyed long meals with friends, discussing meaningful topics over wine. He had the luxury of these dinners because he wasn't preoccupied with accumulating wealth or buying extravagant possessions. Jesus lived modestly, acquiring only what he truly needed and prioritizing what truly held value. You might think these practices suited Jesus well in his time, given the absence of modern technology, demanding jobs, and family responsibilities. These points are valid. Our lives differ fundamentally from Jesus, yet many of his practices can still be adapted to our fast-paced modern world. In the upcoming sections, you'll discover 4 uncomplicated practices inspired by Jesus' way of life. These practices can revolutionize your perspective on time and help you focus on what truly matters. Chapter 6. Quiet reflection in a loud world. Our world has become more noisy than ever before. The prevalence of social media means that even when we're physically by ourselves, we seldom find ourselves alone with our own thoughts. In earlier times, we had moments of quiet reflection naturally integrated into our lives. Whether waiting in line or gazing out of a bus window, we had opportunities to listen to our own thinking. This kind of aloneness, sometimes seen as boredom, has nearly vanished, as many of us now spend these in-between moments checking our phone notifications. What are the outcomes of being consistently engaged with technology? Increased anxiety, fatigue, and a generally irritable mood are all indications of excessive technology use. Moreover, we might start to feel disconnected from ourselves, living in a responsive mode, anticipating the next buzz in our pocket. How can we transition away from this overwhelmed state? As we learned from the earlier example, Jesus demonstrated this well. Jesus' respect for silence and solitude was crucial to his way of life and expression of faith. Despite being very occupied and having people relying on him for miracles, Jesus made it a priority to spend time alone. He would often wake up early and retreat by himself to find tranquility before anyone else was up. On one especially busy day, when he had no time for himself, he even went up a mountain and prayed throughout the night. Having that solitary time was non-negotiable. He was determined to do whatever it took. Likewise, we also greatly require moments of both quiet and seclusion to maintain our emotional well-being. You don't have to climb a mountain to find time alone. Just wake up an hour earlier than others in your home and savor a cup of coffee in your favorite chair. Alternatively, get off the subway one station ahead and take a leisurely walk to work, absorbing all the colors and textures of the surroundings as you pass by. Put away your earphones and set aside the podcasts. Allow yourself to experience whatever feelings arise, and to be present with the jumble of thoughts racing through your mind. You might come across some unsettling or unattractive thoughts that you've been evading. Let them exist. As you continue with this routine, you'll realize that solitude isn't synonymous with loneliness. It allows for a deep connection with ourselves and the world around us. Chapter 7. Rest and Worship in a Busy World. A few decades back, Sundays in America used to be incredibly quiet. All the stores and businesses remained closed, offering limited options for activities. However, there were alternatives. People could spend quality time with their loved ones, go to a local park, attend church, take a nap on the couch, or prepare a meal. For many major religions, taking a day of rest each week is a fundamental principle. Even God, despite his immense power, took a day off to recuperate after creating the world in 6 days. Unfortunately, the value of this resting time has diminished due to society's shift towards being less religious and more focused on commercial pursuits. Today, shopping is accessible 24/7, whether in physical stores open at all hours or online shops that are just a click away. This trend extends to work as well, with smartphones turning our lives into a constant office, leading to burnout becoming widespread. It seems we've forgotten how to truly take a break. So how do we address this issue? Reintroducing the idea of a Sabbath day dedicated to rest and worship could be the solution. There's no strict rule for how this should be practiced. Resting might mean strolling along the beach or enjoying a nap in the sunlight. Perhaps it's finally building that Lego pirate ship with your persistent daughter. Worship doesn't have to occur solely within the walls of a church. It can manifest in any activity that lets you appreciate and savor the world around you. It might involve sharing wine with close friends in the garden or immersing yourself in a concert's musical vibrations. Similar to music, pauses hold great significance in our lives. Just as rests in music let us value the preceding notes and emphasize the upcoming melodies, taking breaks in life helps us cherish what we have and recharge for what's ahead. Chapter 8. Unclutter your life. How many sets of shoes do you keep in your closet? And out of those, how many have you put on recently? If you're feeling a bit guilty about answering these questions, don't blame yourself. Our modern society's focus on consumerism has developed as we shifted from an economy based on necessities to one driven by desires in the last century. The rise of industry allowed for mass production, and with the influence of sophisticated advertising, we often believe that acquiring more is necessary for fulfillment. However, things were different in the past. Just 100 years ago, 90% of Americans made a living through farming. They grew their own food, exchanged goods with neighbors, and rarely used money. Today, only 2% of Americans work in agriculture. We now rely heavily on money and find ourselves caught in a cycle of excessive consumption, purchasing things we don't truly need. Yet, accumulating more possessions doesn't just cost us money, it also takes away from the limited time we have to truly live. If we genuinely wish to remove the feeling of constantly rushing from our lives, we need to gradually reduce our desire for unnecessary items. Jesus preached that money isn't the key, that true contentment comes from having what's truly necessary and sharing the excess. You might be worried at the idea of clearing out your house and simplifying life to just a few essentials. However, there are less extreme approaches to streamline our lives and reduce our dependence on belongings. Before pulling out your credit card, pause and ask yourself, what's the real price of this item? How many hours of work does it take to afford it? Is it genuinely essential, or do I already own something similar? Instead of buying impulsively, assess the value of the purchase in relation to its cost. Alongside consuming less, sharing what we already have is a great way to lead a less materialistic life. For instance, participating in a car-sharing program with neighbors not only cuts costs and thus saves time, but also strengthens your ties to the community. One of the biggest misconceptions we've been sold is that money is necessary for enjoyment. However, there are countless simple and free pleasures available if we take the time to appreciate them. Enjoying a morning cup of coffee, going for a bike ride, or having a chat with an old friend. We don't require fancy workout gear to relish a visit to the park. Walking around in the autumn leaves will feel just as satisfying in our well-worn sneakers. Chapter 9. Slow down your life. We've all experienced the frustration of waiting in line at a store while someone ahead of us struggles to weigh their fruit and find their payment card. It can be annoying to be held up like that. However, consider this: you actually have the time to spare. In our rush to get things done quickly and efficiently, we've forgotten that sometimes we're in a hurry just for the sake of it. What if we attempted to slow down and embrace some inefficiency in our lives from time to time? For instance, when you're driving home from work, you might try driving exactly at the speed limit. Instead of hurriedly passing other cars, you could practice letting them merge in front of you, and you could even stop to let pedestrians cross the street. Instead of treating your commute like a stressful race, you could view it as a chance to spend time with yourself, allowing your thoughts to flow and processing your day. Adopting a slower pace in life becomes much more feasible if you make an effort to simplify your communication. While smartphones are meant to make life easier, do we really need to answer emails while on the toilet? One approach to slowing down is switching from a smartphone to a basic, dumb phone, eliminating email and social media so you only receive urgent calls and texts. Instead of reacting to emails instantly, consider setting aside an hour each day to go through your inbox. Reducing your reliance on your phone will make it simpler to focus on one thing at a time. Rather than trying to juggle multiple tasks and not finishing any of them, attempt to do just one thing at a time. And when you find yourself waiting in line at the store, try striking up a conversation with the cashier instead of sending a text. Take the time to pack your groceries in an organized way. Experience the satisfaction of directing your energy and attention to a single task before moving on to the next one, knowing that it's completed. Living with purpose and being mindful of your actions can actually give you more time and, more importantly, a sense of calm and contentment. Conclusion. We've all experienced the rush of modern life. We constantly rush from one commitment to another, work long hours, sacrifice sleep, and feel continuously stressed and worn out. This takes a toll on our relationships and prevents us from fully engaging in our own lives. Rather than seeking a solution in trendy meditation apps, we can turn to the spiritual teachings found in the Bible. Even before mindfulness became popular, Jesus practiced it expertly. He understood the importance of personal time, forming meaningful relationships, and controlling what he took in. By adopting his daily practices, we can uncover ways to lead lives that are more serene and satisfying. Practical tip: treat your phone like you would your kids. Establish an early evening routine. Browsing through social media or responding to messages right before bedtime fills your mind with distractions and distressing news. Just as you set a bedtime for your children, put your phone to bed early in the evening by switching it to airplane mode or stowing it away in a drawer. This grants you more time to unwind and bond with your family or roommates. Plus, you'll find it easier to fall asleep since your mind will be more at peace.